Okay, on behalf of the Council on Library and Information Resources and the Digital Library Federation, welcome to today's eResearch Peer Network and Mentoring Group webinar. My name is Rita Van Dynen and I will be your moderator for today's session. You'll notice the chat window on the left of the screen. Some of you have already been using it. We will be pausing throughout the session for questions and discussion, and you can post your questions or comments in that chat window. Today's webinar will conclude at 2:30 p.m. Eastern. If at any time during the webinar you experience technical difficulties, please send either Louisa or I a private chat so that we can troubleshoot with you. You can just mouse over one of our names and click on the private chat option. You can also send Louisa or I an email, and we'll be posting those email addresses in the chat window. Also note that you may exit and re-enter the webinar at any time. Today's webinar is being recorded. A link to the recording from today's session will be posted in Clear Connect, and I will also be sending the link to our guest speakers today. Joining us are our 4 Clear DLF postdoctoral fellows in data curation: Vesela Ensberg from UCLA, Ina Cooper from Indiana University, Natsuko Nichols from the University of Michigan, and en route to the a new position at the University, Virginia Tech, and Kendall Rourke from the University of Alberta. And unfortunately, our faculty member Chuck Humphrey was not able to join us today. Also joining us are 3 guest speakers. Here today to discuss the use of the New England Collaborative Data Management Curriculum to teach RDM are Elaine Martin and Donna Keffel from the Lamar Suter Library at the University of Massachusetts Medical School. And Elaine and Donna, I apologize if I mispronounced your name or the name of your library. Also joining us is Elisa Serkis of the NYU Health Sciences Library. Elisa will be presenting on the development of library data services at an academic medical center. So a big welcome to our guest speakers, and thank you for agreeing to be a part of today's webinar. Just briefly, our webinar will cover the following. Each institutional team will share their instruction and outreach experiences from the group activity, and we'll follow up with some time for Q&A. Next, we'll hear from our guest speakers with time for Q&A after each session. We'll close with a few housekeeping items as usual. And just a reminder that our group does have a hashtag, so if you'd like to tweet about today's webinar, please do. Okay, without further ado, I'm going to pass it off to Pete Rogers at Colgate University. Pete, the floor is yours when you're ready.
Okay, thank you much. Are you advancing the slides? Am I advancing the slides? Yes, okay. So what I wanted to talk about was some work we've been doing with classes, with departments here that are interested in spatial data, data literacy, spatial literacy, but they don't have the resources, et cetera, to use some of the really hardcore tools like ArcGIS Desktop. And so this is what I call, quote unquote, GIS Lite. Can you advance forward, please? So there are a couple of approaches that we've taken with this. There's some general tools. We've used Google Earth a lot. We've used Google Earth Tours as a kind of assignment for classes where students produce Google Earth Tours. We're learning how to use ArcGIS Online and some of the features available with that. The one I want to talk about most today is another approach. Instead of using general tools, looking at some discipline topic-specific tools, and one that's been of interest to me because of my background is something out of the EPA called EJView for their environmental justice, for a class here on environmental justice. EJView, and I think this is a live link here. You could click through to it. It's something that draws together EPA databases on environmental hazards, as well as information from the Census's American Community Survey and some other sources. So you can create maps with both environmental and then social variables in them and look at the spatial relationship between them. So next, please. Yeah. So these are just some of the things that I do in these classes, is talk about this notion of neo-geography, the way in which there's been a fundamental shift in the making of maps, the use of geospatial data, provide some readings by one of my favorite authors, favorite pair of authors, then do a demo of the EJView tool, and then set up for the assignment. Not here, but in the forum, I've put the set of slides that we used last fall in this class. So next slide, please. And so this is sort of my wrap-up here, where we're going with this. Once again, the timing of this is pretty good for us. Tomorrow, and Jeremy's here, the student who's been working with this summer. Jeremy and I and someone from the IT department will be doing a workshop for teaching faculty on how to use Google Earth, how to use ArcGIS online in their classes. We have someone from history, someone from geology, and someone from film and media studies coming to the workshop. We'll be doing the EJView assignment again this fall for the environmental justice class. And I think some of the important sort of lessons we've learned, which may be obvious but are always worth reiterating, are the importance of consulting with the instructor, making sure that what you're providing in terms of a lesson, a tool, resources, readings, whatever fit in, are tightly linked to the course itself. One of the things I emphasize, the third point here, is not just the teaching of technical skills, but also critical thinking about the technical skills and resources, hence the reading by Krieger and Woods on maps and map making. And then one of the things that's interesting that's come up is when I, as a librarian, go in to teach a class and also then help develop an assignment, make sure everybody involved, the students and the instructor, are clear on who's doing the grading, how it's going to be graded, whose responsibility is. Because there's nothing students hate more than being unsure, is this person grading this, is this person grading this, are these people grading this together? And so being able to really sort of clearly be able to explain that, and thus you sort of, people don't worry about the grading and won't worry about their grades as much and can concentrate on learning the material. So I think those are all my points, so thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, next up is Montana State University, and I know you all joined a little bit late, so hopefully your audio is working, so when you're ready, go ahead and give that a try. It's Sarah and Jason.
Hi, can you hear us?
We can. Go right ahead.
Yeah, as the slide says, we really haven't done a lot of outreach yet, so this webinar is going to be very useful to us. But one of the things we have done that we're proud of is that we have assigned me, the data management librarian, and our scholarly communication librarian as liaisons to our Office of Research. So that's enabled us to kind of have more regular meetings with the VPR, the Vice President of Research, and come up with some projects that we can do together. So I hope that that will sort of push our outreach further in the future. So that's it. Thank you.
Sarah. Northwestern, the floor is yours when you're ready.
Hi, this is Canera from Northwestern. I hope you can all hear me. We're kind of in the same state as Montana. We haven't really done a lot of data management outreach and training, and it's something we really want to concentrate on this year, and part of the reason that we signed up for this network. We've done a few 10-minute bits like National Computational Research Day. We did a little 10-minute thing on data management every fall for incoming graduate students, mostly in social sciences and humanities. We have what we call the Resource Forum. So last year we did a 10-minute bit, and this year data management is actually going to be a 45-minute session, so that's going to be like our first really long session on data management outreach and training. And that's all I got.
Thanks so much. Okay, University of Arizona. The floor is yours. Hello?
Hi, can you hear me now? Can you hear me?
We can hear you. Go right ahead.
All right. Okay, here we go. Last fall, we presented a data management planning workshop to the College of Ag and Life Sciences. We had 2 different sessions. One, both dates were in October. There were a total of 26 people, and there were people it was both in person and it was also streamed live to one of the extension offices, which is in Maricopa County, and Maricopa County is where Phoenix is. So we were really happy that they were interested and we were able to do that. Our comments about some of the activities that we did during the workshop were that some of them didn't work as well as we hoped they would. And we're not really sure exactly why some of them didn't work. And when I say they didn't work, I mean that, we had like a little activity for people to do. And in some cases, we didn't get much of any response from the participants there. So in retrospect, looking back on how we think we could improve that, that if we design activities that would address a broader range of disciplines, since the College of Ag and Life Sciences, the disciplines that are represented in that college are really broad, and also participants' knowledge of data management. So in some cases that people seem to have quite a bit of knowledge about it, and other people had really none at all. And also that, when you do workshops, it's always really helpful to have a better sense of people's knowledge of the topic of the workshop beforehand, so you can better customize the information that you're providing. And based on that workshop, we developed an online tutorial, and it includes updates based on feedback of the workshop participants. And we just finished that. I think it might have actually been after spring semester was finished, and we'll be doing a lot of promotion for that tutorial as we start the fall semester.
Thank you so much, Arizona. Illinois, the floor is yours when you're ready.
Okay, so at Illinois, we've had quite a few different instruction efforts and outreach efforts. We decided to focus on one that's probably been one of our longer term efforts. So there were 2 of us in the library, myself and our librarian who's really involved in scholarly communications, have offered an intro to data management workshop for the past 2 academic years, and that was offered twice each semester, and it was a 90-minute workshop that was very high level, because the people who it was open to anybody on campus, although heavily marketed to graduate students, so it tended to almost always be graduate students who attended, but they could have been from any discipline across campus. So there was always a wide variety of disciplines represented at the workshops, and I should mention that this workshop was offered as part of the library's broader Savvy Researcher workshop series. So It helped with marketing and things like that because there was already a big marketing effort for those general workshops, and this was just part of that. On average, we had about 5 to 10 people attend each session. And the one thing that we've learned is that even in 90 minutes, it's really difficult to cover things in great detail, especially given that there are people representing all different disciplines and different types of data. And so kind of from what we've learned, we are actually trying something new this academic year. We're going to shorten our intro session to be just 50 minutes long, which is more in line with all the other Savvy Researcher workshops. And so we're still going to introduce people to data management concepts, but focus it more on kind of using a sample data management plan to help them think through those concepts for their own data. And then we are expanding to include more focused sessions. So there's actually going to be kind of 7 workshops offered in this series on data management. So a special focused on metadata and data documentation and storage and security issues and things like that. We're going to try to incorporate more hands-on activities into those specific sessions, and then we're going to be kind of advertising this as a series of attend these variety of workshops on data management, and people can pick and choose what they might find that they're most concerned about or have the most problems with, or something they're just the most interested in. So we'll see how this goes. We're still finalizing plans for this academic year, but we're definitely going to try something new and see how it works.
Much Illinois. Okay, Manitoba, the floor is yours.
Hi. So currently at the University of Manitoba Libraries, there's no library-wide guidelines for instruction and outreach. So that means I cannot really base this new type of instruction and outreach, like data management training, on existing guidelines. However, our liaison librarians have been studying some outreach, quote-unquote, marketing best practices for their instruction and outreach efforts. And in particular, our physics librarians has developed a marketing plan for specifically for the sciences library services. And I am hoping to base on the new efforts of data management instruction outreach on these existing works done at the library. And I've also listed here some data management instructions outreach activities we have implemented and have also planned so far. The first one is the NECDMC pilot, which was done in June 2014, so just a couple months ago. So this pilot was done with 8 liaison librarians in the natural sciences, agriculture, engineering, and nursing. And I facilitated the pilot, and we had a chance to go over all 7 modules available through that curriculum. And in that pilot, because of the group size, I tried to focus on the group discussions and activities. And the NECDMC curriculums come with a variety of research, like real research cases, and there's a list of questions for those cases. So I tried to cover as many different research cases as possible during that pilot. And according to the feedback I received from the participants, so they did enjoy doing the real life or real research examples. And I think because these liaison librarians have working relationships already, so group discussions wasn't an issue. We had a pretty good active discussions in each session. And I think it also helped because they are coming from similar or common backgrounds. They have the sciences backgrounds, experience working with students and faculty in the sciences, agriculture, engineering areas. But we did have some difficulties, not quite difficulties, but some suggestions for the future. For example, have different types of activities besides the group discussions. So in one module of the NECDMC curriculum, we learned about the different like software tools for data storage backup. But so instead of just reading about those tools, it would have been nice to have some kind of lab time, actually having a chance to use those software tools. So that was one of the suggestions I received from the participants. And it was difficult to schedule all these sessions. And each session, actually, we spent close to 3 hours. And it was good because as a pilot, we really wanted to dig into these materials available to us. But going forward and trying to offer the curriculum for different groups of librarians or different groups of students or different departments, then I'll probably need to shorten the length of each sessions or have to decide to cover just some of the modules available and not all 7. Thank you. Sorry. Right, so the next 2 points are for the future. So through our Faculty of Graduate Studies, I have an opportunity to present on data management and open access to graduate students. So there will be one presentation in 4, and that will be for graduate students in social sciences and humanities, and then there will be another presentation in the new year, and that will be for health sciences graduate students. And just so besides having like a formal presentations or instruction outreach activities, we are trying to have ongoing informal conversation with individual faculty members or even the graduate students. And recently I had an opportunity to participate in the new faculty orientation. I was one of the participants, and I had an opportunity to just speak with the new faculty members about what I do as a librarian and about my area of librarianship, which was data management and open access. Thank you.
Manitoba. University of Rochester, the floor is yours.
Thank you. So we've done a couple different things in terms of outreach, the most successful of which I think has been the series of workshops that we did, particularly in the spring last year. And within that, the kind of best received one at this point has been the workshops focusing on writing good data management plans. So we've offered this workshop twice in the same format, once within our science library, kind of on the main campus, and once on the medical campus. And we had about 45 people total come. I think about 15 to the first session and then close to 30 at the medical session. And there were a mix of faculty members, especially new faculty, some graduate students, and then again in the medical center we had study coordinators come. One of the things that we learned from it was that most of the people who were coming were folks who didn't have really any experience writing data management plans. Some of them were definitely going to be writing data management plans in the near future. Others were just kind of wanting to see what might be down the road for them. In the future, based on our experience with these workshops, I think one of the things that we'll do is focus on specific funder requirements. So the way the workshop was structured was really walking through kind of the process of putting together an NSF plan, because those are so sort of detailed and comprehensive. We felt that they were a good foundation for doing pretty much any funder. But I think it'd be useful to focus on specific funders, as well as kind of highlighting specific tools. And we're also going to be kind of expanding the workshop series to, using statistical tools and some GIS topics and that kind of thing, and sort of working on weaving in data management topics to kind of all the other topical workshops. So that's what we've done.
Chester. Okay. Last but not least, University of Toronto, the floor. Does not have a microphone, evidently, so they are typing in the chat window, and I will just summarize what's on their slide. They have provided an example of outreach, speed dataing, I love that, an open mic without the romance. Great title. So graduate students gathered to discuss how they work with data in their research. Discussion was lively and provided the library with insight into the differences in the disciplines, as well as into the discourse surrounding the graduate student experience with data management. The discussion provided a number of concrete areas and examples where Toronto feels they could build a program to advise students on the management, preservation, and sharing of their research data. Some needs that were identified during this session were incorporated into the proposal and curriculum for their upcoming graduate professional skills course, Research Data Management, through the School of Graduate Studies. And they had 14 graduate students from various disciplines attend. So that's excellent. Thank you, Toronto. So at this point, we will pause here for a few minutes for any questions or comments, and you can use the chat window for that. And our guest speakers, if you have any questions or comments for our group members, feel free.
This is Sarah Williams from UIUC. I saw the question about faculty or researchers attending the workshops. We've had maybe a few postdoc researchers attend. I believe the only faculty who have attended are library faculty who are coming to kind of get a better feel, a better understanding of data management issues, so that they can go out and talk with their the faculty that they serve and support. So I don't think we've had any faculty from outside of the library attend.
Sarah from the University of Illinois is typing in the chat window, so we'll give it just another minute or two and then we'll move ahead. Kendall Rourke is going to be introducing our first set of guest speakers, Elaine and Donna. So Kendall, when you are ready, the floor is yours, and feel free to continue to use the chat window for questions and comments.
Thanks, Rita. So our first guests today are Elaine Martin and Donna Caffel. Elaine Martin is both the Director of Library Services at Lamar Suter Library and the National Network of Libraries of Medicine New England region at the University of Massachusetts Medical School, Worcester. Dr. Martin is a professor of practice at the Graduate School of Library and Information Science at Simmons College, Boston, teaching courses in medical librarianship, library management, and scientific research data management. Before joining UMass, Dr. Martin was director of the Health Sciences Library at the University of Illinois at Chicago and served in various other professional positions in medical school libraries in Virginia, Washington, D.C., and Washington State. Dr. Martin received her MSLS from the Catholic University of America, Washington, D.C., and her doctorate in Library Science Administration from Simmons College in Boston, Massachusetts. Dr. Martin's research interests include biomedical informatics, assessing the information needs of public health workforce, evidence-based public health, e-science, and organizational development, in particular leadership and teamwork as they apply to medical libraries. Most recently, she and her colleagues have developed a nationally recognized curriculum for teaching scientific research data management that is being piloted by more than 17 other health sciences, college, and university libraries. Our second guest is Donna Caffel, and Donna Caffel is the project coordinator for the NER-sponsored New England e-Science program that is based at the Lamar Suter Library, University of Massachusetts Medical School. The Northeast eScience program offers professional development events, resources, and opportunities for collaboration for health sciences, science, and engineering librarians who support networked research at their institutions. Donna coordinates the planning and development of the annual University of Massachusetts and New England Area Librarian eScience Symposia, the New England Science Boot Camp for librarians, and professional development workshops such as the recent Teaching Research Data Management with the New England Collaborative Data Management Curriculum. Donna also manages the eScience portal for New England librarians, a centralized portal that links to resources on data management planning, data literacy, scholarly communication, trends and technologies, science resources, and professional development courses, and data librarian educational programs, as well as the eScience community blog. Donna is a co-instructor in the Scientific Data Management class at Simmons GSLIS, and with colleagues Elaine Martin and Andrew Creamer, recently co-authored a chapter entitled Research Data Management and the Health Sciences Librarian for an upcoming Health Sciences Librarianship textbook. Donna also serves as a special issues editor for the Journal of eScience Librarianship. So I'd like to welcome Elaine and Donna, and when you're ready, you can begin your presentation. Thank you.
Well, thank you everyone for having us today. This is Elaine. I'll be speaking first, and then Donna will continue the presentation. Donna and I will be talking to you today about the collaboration we have formed first in New England and now internationally to teach scientific research data management using the curriculum we developed locally with partners from the National Network of Libraries of Medicine, New England Region Health Sciences, and Engineering librarians. I will highlight the basics of the curriculum, and Donna will then give you more of the programmatic details as well as the next steps. We welcome your questions and feedback in the chat box as we go along or at the end of the presentation. I'm going to try to go to the next slide. I thought I would give you some background to our project. We got started in August of 2010 with funding from the IMLS to develop frameworks and a strategic plan for teaching research data management with a local partner, Worcester Polytech Institute, which is an engineering school partnered with the University of Massachusetts Medical School. Along with our partner WPI, with help from consultants, an advisory board of faculty, researchers, and librarians from UMass Medical School and WPI, and a graduate student from WPI, we first conducted data needs interviews and focus groups of faculty and students from both institutions to identify research data management curricular needs. We also called in experts from other institutions to talk to us about data management. And based on this input, we developed a set of frameworks on which a course could be developed. This was the first phase of our project. We finished developing the frameworks using IMLS funding in December of 2011, and in May of 2012, with funding from the National Library of Medicine, we were actually able to populate the curriculum, filling in the lectures, slides, activities, readings, and teaching cases. At this time, we also expanded the partnership to include librarians at UMass Amherst, Tufts, Northeastern, and MBL Hui. These partners developed the first 6 modules of the curriculum, and later librarians from Harvard and the University of Connecticut completed Module 7, dealing with archives and preservation. This next slide shows the website for the curriculum, and the URL is at the bottom of the slide. This introductory slide has tabs on my left side that point to the various pieces of the curriculum. There are lesson plans, which are the frameworks that I talked about, information on how to teach the curriculum materials, the different modules themselves, activities, the teaching cases, the data management plans as examples, slides from various workshops that we and others have presented. There's a community bulletin board with input from pilot sites who are using the curriculum, and then a join the collaboration page for people to sign up and join. Donna will go into more detail in a few minutes about the course content in our teaching cases, but we just wanted to show you the landing page for the curriculum at this time. The frameworks for this curriculum are based on the U.S. National Science Foundation Data Management Plan requirements. We looked at the National Science Foundation requirements for writing up data management plans needed for these grants and simplified the instructions to include 7 major points with subcategories. These 7 points became the outline for the 7 modules in our curriculum. We wanted a curriculum based on a theoretical framework, and the NSF provided that for us. With the help from our advisory board and consultants, we made several initial decisions about the curriculum. First, the course would be modular so that participants could be taught in part or whole. The curriculum modules could be adopted for any audience in any mode of instruction, online or in person. This was in direct response to what students and faculty told us in our initial interviews and focus groups. Second, that the modules would be generic or subject agnostic. We did not have the resources to develop a course for every scientific discipline. But third, the students wanted discipline-specific information, so we addressed these concerns not in the modules themselves, but by developing separate teaching cases to accompany these generic modules, and the cases are in different subject disciplines. We provided this problem-based, case-based approach to accompany the generic modules to address the concerns addressed by faculty and students. And these are the 7 modules. There's an introduction, an overview of research data management, Module 2 on data types, stages, and formats, Module 3 on metadata, Module 4 on data storage, backup, and security, Module 5, legal and ethical considerations, Module 6 on data sharing and reuse, and Module 7 on archiving and preservation and repositories. Now this slide illustrates the elements or the structure contained in each of the 7 modules, irrespective of content within that module. So each module has these components in it: 3 to 4 learning objectives, lecture content, activities or exercises for students, and these could be done as homework or in class exercises, assessments or evaluation tools, such as quizzes, and a list of readings or a bibliography. If you went to the home page and clicked on the left tab called Modules, this is what you would see. The modules are listed, and within each one, there are Word documents for lecture content, PowerPoint slides to accompany the lectures, and activities for you to adapt for your needs. And we do encourage you to use these materials and adapt them. Now at this point, Donna will take you through the rest of the curriculum and explain how you can join our collaboration. Donna?
Thank you, Elaine. As Elaine noted earlier, The inclusion of research cases in the curriculum enables instructors to teach research data management in a disciplinary context that is relevant to their particular audience. Our project team came up with the idea for having a collection of research cases during the early planning phase of the curriculum project, when faculty members on our advisory committee discussed the issue that research practices, culture, and types of data vary widely from one discipline to another, and even from one research setting to another. With this in mind, they advised us to include teaching cases, which are scenarios from actual research projects, as tools for teaching students research data management concepts in familiar research settings. Members of the curriculum project team have worked with researchers from a range of science, health sciences, and engineering disciplines to write these cases. Currently, we have a collection of 11 research cases in NECDMC. These include a case in clinical health, a lab-based health study, biomedical engineering, qualitative behavioral health, an aerospace engineering test lab, a multidisciplinary research case, a model organism neuroscience research case, an ecology field research study, and a genomics study. We're looking to expand this collection to include cases from other disciplines and cases that illustrate a variety of data management issues. On the research cases page of the curriculum, there are links to resources to guide instructors in the use of each case. These resources are titled How to Teach RDM Using Cases and Research Data Management Concepts Illustrated in the Teaching Cases. At the beginning of each research case is a summary of its teaching points. These are followed by a narrative of the case itself and then concluding with a series of discussion questions. The cases can be used for teaching using a variety of different methods, including assignments for homework, as part of in-class activities, and for class or small group discussions. While the research cases facilitate discipline-focused instruction, the lecture slides within each of the curriculum's modules are customizable. They can easily be revised to include information that is specific to your local setting or to meet the specific learning needs of your audiences. For example, in the slide featured on the upper left-hand corner, we used this slide in a workshop that we taught to graduate students here at UMass Medical School. It includes information about the data-related services that our library provides. The slide on the lower right provides names and contact information for individuals within UMass Medical School, whom students can contact for specific questions, such as storage options or finding out what legal responsibilities are for securing research data. The feedback that we've received from students who took this class show that they found this specific information pertinent and useful. So for local piloting, our project team here at UMass Medical School has piloted the curriculum a few different ways. We started in April of 2013 and used the curriculum to teach concepts of data management and data management best practices in a 2-day workshop to a group of medical librarians from the Mid-Atlantic region in Philadelphia. We started teaching Module 1, which is the overview module of the curriculum, in a 90-minute class that we taught to graduate students and faculty who were involved in a clinical translational science award boot camp during the summer last year here at the medical school. For those of you who may not be familiar with the CTSA awards, they are large grants from the National Institute of Health that have been awarded to 60 American universities. and UMass Medical School is one of those recipients of the CTSA award. We've used the curriculum in a one-semester, 4-credit course that we call Scientific Data Management that we have taught for 2 semesters, and this fall we'll be embarking on our 3rd iteration of the course at Simmons Graduate School of Library and Information Science in Boston. We've also delivered 2 Train the Trainer classes to librarians. The first one last November, and more recently one in May. And in these classes we've demonstrated how to use the curriculum to librarians who are teaching or who are planning to teach research data management. In these workshops, attendees are already knowledgeable about data management concepts, but have wanted to learn how to use the curriculum at their local settings. Piloting beyond the medical school, wanted to start by explaining that we launched the NECDMC website officially last November, and this coincided with our first Train the Trainer workshop. We have given the curriculum a Creative Commons license, and anyone is free to use the curriculum, parts of it or all of it, and to modify it for their use. We do know that many librarians are doing just this, and we also know that many librarians are supplementing parts of the NECDMC curriculum with other curriculum materials, such as some of the resources from Data One's teaching modules. We're inviting librarians who plan to use or who are currently using NECDMC to become official pilot partners. The response to our invitation has been good, and right now we have 14 active piloting partners in the U.S., Canada, and more recently South Africa. Partners participate in evaluating the curriculum and are invited to write research cases as well. This diagram here represents a sampling of some of our NECDMC pilot partners. As you see, they represent a cross-section of small and large universities, health sciences schools, and undergraduate and graduate student bodies. As you can see, Mayu mentioned earlier that she had piloted NECDMC, and we have University of Manitoba here on this diagram. We've learned recently that Module 1, the overview module of the curriculum, was translated into another language for teaching at an international university. As I mentioned before, we invite librarians that want to use NECDMC to become our official pilot partners. Pilot partners help improve the curriculum by giving us feedback and providing student evaluations and suggestions for enhancing the curriculum, and sharing details about their use of the curriculum, and optionally considering writing new research cases to expand the depth and breadth of the cases in the curriculum, or adding cases and writing papers to the Journal of eScience Librarianship. This fall, our library publishes the Journal of eScience Librarianship, and this fall we will be publishing a special issue that focuses on teaching research data management, and we are inviting submissions for that particular issue. On this slide is a little graphic showing some of the different ways that people are delivering the curriculum in their teaching. NECDMC has been taught via self-standing, like 1-hour library-based workshops, often using Module 1 as an overview, a full-day class for graduate students, at professional development workshops and staff training sessions, as classes during graduate student orientations, a 4-credit course for researchers, and as a series of 7 weekly workshops. More recently, one of our partners, Tufts University, recently used the curriculum to teach a session on research data management to attendees at the World Biology Forum. And here's some of the early feedback that we're getting, some common responses that we're getting from our pilot partners and the students they've been teaching. Some of the comments include students want to have slides customized to their local setting. Instructors are finding it easier to teach a homogeneous group within a single discipline than to be teaching groups of students from a variety of disciplines. Definitely do not teach all the modules in one day. That is definitely information overload. And students really do like having practical activities to break up lecture and make the concepts within each class more meaningful to them. For example, some of these activities include some file naming exercises or reading one of the cases and creating a data management plan from the case. Going forward, we anticipate developing some interactive, self-paced modules for students to be able to take independently. We're also looking to expand our collection of cases beyond STEM subjects to include cases from social sciences and humanities. As I mentioned earlier, we're publishing a special teaching research data management issue of the Journal of eScience Librarianship this fall. We're also interested in offering any further train-the-trainer classes for librarians who would like training in using the components of the curriculum. And we're always looking to add new pilot partners. We see NECDMC as a very dynamic tool, evolving and expanding and improving with the collaboration of multiple partners. So that wraps up Elaine's and my introduction to NECDMC. We hope we've familiarized you a bit with the curriculum's resources and that you might consider joining the NECDMC collaboration and becoming a pilot partner. Thank you all for listening to our presentation, and we'd be glad to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Elaine and Donna. That was a fantastic presentation. Thank you for all that great information. Group members, if you want to take a minute or two to use the chat window for questions, go right ahead. Elaine and Donna will be watching the activity there. And we'll pause just for a minute, and in the interest of our remaining time, we'll get started with Elisa Circus's presentation in just a moment.
The question about the social sciences research cases under development, not at this time, and we would welcome anyone who would like to participate in that way.
Yes, there's a question from, I think I'm just skipped the first question, from Chris, Cindy, and Jim at University of Arizona. Is the scientific research data management class taught at Simmons an online course? No, it isn't. It's actually, we teach it in person. This upcoming semester, we're going to be trying something a little different. We will be teaching it in person at the Boston campus, but video, at the same time, it will be video cast to students out in the Western Massachusetts campus.
But to add to what Donna is talking about, there has been some discussion of us making that class an online class, but because Simmons has multiple campuses for teaching GLIS curriculum, they asked us first to use this as a video conference opportunity before turning it into an online class.
Okay. And Peter Rogers, you've asked, would this include undergraduate student-created research data? Definitely. We've geared the curriculum so that it can be taught to undergraduate and graduate students, and we're aware of the fact that undergraduate students are often very involved in research, and believe that, early teaching of best data management practices is definitely worth it, and it's a good audience to focus on.
In terms of Rita's question about plans for an online course, we are talking to Simmons about that potentially down the road, and we are having a planning meeting this fall with our advisory board talking about expanding into other disciplines as well as taking the modules and putting them as an online tutorial. So that is in discussion for future development of the class within the next year. In terms of Bernice's question about the criteria used to select cases for the case-based approach, the initial cases were developed by the faculty researchers on our advisory board. So we did have an advisory board that had faculty and researchers from a couple of our institutions, WPI and UMass Medical School, so the initial cases came from there. As we have grown the pilot, our pilot institutions are adding research cases, and one of the requirements for our graduate library school course is that the students interview a researcher, develop a data management plan for the work that researcher is doing, and write a teaching case. Some of the students have given us permission to post their cases. If they're really good cases, we ask them, and they gave us permission. Like the zebrafish case is an example that actually came from one of our students in that class. So we are trying to solicit different cases with different disciplines in a variety of methods.
Mm-hmm. That illustrate different components of the National Science Foundation data management plan recommendations. In terms of how many students are enrolled in the credit course, we've been averaging about 10 students at Simmons. The course is promoted through the regular course catalog. We've had returning practicing librarians audit the class. They can take the class at a discounted price if they're Simmons graduates. So we've even had practicing librarians teach a class. We've had master's students take the class, and we've had PhD students take the class. But we've had about 10 each semester, and that seems to be a good number.
Great. Thank you so much, Elaine and Donna, for those questions. And in the interest of time, we're going to move forward with Elisa's presentation. Again, feel free to use the chat window to ask questions, make comments. So with no further ado, I'm going to turn this over to Vesela so she can introduce Elisa.
So our next speaker is Elisa Serkis from New York University Health Sciences Library. Elisa received her MLIS from Queens College and has a master's degree in physics from Stanford and a PhD in neuroscience in NYU. She is a translational science librarian and a liaison to the Neuroscience Institute at NYU, and in her multiple roles, she provides scholarly communications support and bibliometrics support, and she's actively involved in data services. Her work at the medical center is focused on research resource discovery and research networking, and developing resources to support translational research. For example, the development of a data catalog, about which she's going to talk today, and promoting cooperation. So, Elisa, thank you for joining us today, and I will just let you proceed.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Vesela and Rita. So I'm going to talk about the development of library data services at an academic medical center. And I'm going to talk about two projects. Mainly, I'm going to talk about the data catalog we're developing, and I'm also going to talk a little bit about a lab organization tool that we're just sort of in the beginning stages of trying to develop. So the data catalog was something that I want to thank Donna for explaining the CTSA program. This was originally came through our CTSI, our Clinical and Translational Science Institute, and the impetus for this was that there were our population health researchers mainly use these large external data sets, Census, Medicare, NHANES, a number of data sets like that. And they were looking for a way to somehow facilitate access, help people become aware of data sets they didn't know about, find out if there were institutional licenses or if there were individuals who had access to these that could share. So based on that need, I had run across this, which is actually from the UCSF CTSI website, and this is a large data set inventory, and I said, well, we can build you something like this, and they were interested in that. So we built something. This was our initial catalog, data catalog. So as you can see, we built something very much like what UCSF had. And this was a way to sort of get something up there, begin to solidify the project, and start to get feedback from the population health researchers who were interested in this. And this project really became sort of an all hands on deck kind of a project. We used, we had ontology and metadata expertise that we made use of. There was our systems and technology group where we had web design and programming to actually build the catalog. From our research and education group, we had people who were liaisons to the population health department who had subject knowledge and did outreach, and then there's licensing involved. So this really cut across many of the areas of the library. And at our CTSI was at this time developing a number of different data management services that coalesced into this clinical research data management core. And we were involved in these external data sets, cataloging the external data sets, and that was what the initial need was expressed, but we were always interested in the internal data sets as well, data sets created by our own researchers and cataloging those. But also this core was clinical in nature, and in terms of internal data sets, we were really, from the library's perspective, interested in all areas of research. So around the time we were began working on this project, we were joined by Kevin Reed, who's has been in our library as a second-year NLM fellow, and he spearheaded a series of data interviews. So this was first related to the data catalog, but also with a broader perspective to try and get researcher perspectives on their data and on data sharing. And we spoke to a number of different people from the library, did these interviews, and we spoke to about 30 researchers. And the approach was to identify active researchers, get data from our grants office to find out who at the medical center had active grants. So we made sure that we were talking to people who were currently collecting data. And in terms of the outreach, we made use of connections where we had them, but we did a lot of just sending out emails explaining what we were interested in, and we got a pretty decent response. As I said, we were able to talk to 30 researchers, and that number came about just kind of continuing to talk to researchers until we feel like we'd really gotten the lay of the land in different areas. Kevin did a lot of background work on seeing what kinds of different approaches, different sets of questions people had used for these types of data interviews, assessments. And we ended up going with just really a very broad set of questions with the idea that we really wanted to keep it very conversational. We didn't want to, by making our questions very specific, make assumptions about how the researchers might think about or talk about their data. So we figured in terms of just putting the questions out there as broadly as possible, it was more likely that they would sort of talk in ways that we might have not have even thought to ask about. And we and those interviews ended up really kind of breaking down into the basic science and then the clinical and population health researchers in the sort of points that were hit upon again and again by the researcher. For the basic scientists, what we saw is that for the most part, they had really little to nothing in place in terms of any kind of standards or procedures, and they were really their biggest challenge was that they had postdocs and also graduate students who would do their work, leave the lab, leave behind little or no documentation. So it would be very difficult to kind of go back and find out who had done what. And so they had, I said, very oftentimes, really no way to do that, or very kind of, well, we can always call them on the phone, that sort of thing. On the clinical and population health side, those were more often projects that there would be a team working on it, and you would have different people touching data at different times in different ways. So there were a lot of opportunities for data corruption. So data quality came up again and again, problems with team communication. And then around sharing, there was a big divide in that the basic science researchers were willing to share with their collaborators, which is good, but they were on the whole not very open to the idea of publicly sharing their data, whereas the clinical and also particularly the population health researchers were very open to that idea. Back to the catalog, we over the time we had developed this new interface. We had better metadata that kind of grew out of some of the work that we had done with the initial set. We wanted to find metadata that adhered to existing standards as much as possible. We broadened it from what the initial set we had sort of taken from when we'd looked at the UCSF interface. What we really found from the interviews that we wanted to go back to the population health researchers. Those were the researchers who were most interested in sharing, most willing to share. And so we felt that in terms of when we started adding internal data sets, if we built out from that population, we were most likely to get new research developing from the catalog, new collaborations. And so it was going to be our best opportunity to increase interest in the catalog and also hopefully increase resources put towards it. And this is a mock-up of what the individual record will look like. And the one thing I want to point out is that this feature we added, which is local expert. And I think this is going to be really one of the most valuable things in the catalog. So what we did is work with the department, people in the Department of Population Health, to come up with a list of people within NYU who had experience using a number of these different data sets with the idea that, and they would be willing to answer questions. So new researchers who wanted to use the data set but had some questions would be able to reach out. And so we thought that, again, this is could be a very powerful way to increase mentoring and collaboration. And back to the core, that clinical research data management course. So in addition to the catalog, there are a couple of other elements. This one that says Enterprise Data Warehouse. So that's about being able to pull data sets mainly from the electronic health record for research purposes. And so one of the goals is when those data sets have been pulled to be able to catalog those so that those can be reused by other researchers. And then the quality compliant databases is a service to help people with data management, data integrity for the clinical research. And again, we've talked about trying to create a pipeline so that when those services are received, there's communication and workflow that will eventually bring those data sets into the catalog. And then the last thing I want to talk about is this lab organization service. So this really came out of the idea of the total lack of organization that we saw in most basic science labs. And the idea was to work with the PIs and draw on existing standards, something like the MIBI standards, which is minimum information for biomedical experiments, to come up with a list of just minimum metadata for experiments, who did the experiment, where the files are, where the lab notebook is if they're using a paper lab notebook. And this was done with REDCap, which is a clinical data capture tool. And even though we're talking about basic science research, what's good about REDCap is it's very, very easy to set up a simple database and a data entry tool. So the idea is something that would take us very little work to set up and would be, something on the order of 10 minutes maybe for a researcher at the start of an experiment to just go through and enter some, basic metadata about the experiment. Would allow them to have a degree of organization that they didn't have before, and also lay the groundwork, so there's a utility to them, and then also lay the groundwork for sharing that that they will eventually get to through carrots or sticks, but that's coming. And we haven't implemented this yet, but we've talked to a couple of different researchers, mostly in my liaison area, which is the Neuroscience Institute, and also because I have this background in basic science, that helps in terms of having a good feel for like lab culture and workflow. And So we've reached out to them, and there's definitely an interest in this. So we hope that over the next few months we will have the opportunity to actually implement this in a lab and see how it works out. As I said, we reach sort of far and wide across the library, so there's a long list of people who've collaborated on one aspect or another of what I've just described today, and references. And just to say thank you, and if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Again, if you have questions for Lisa, feel free to use the chat window or your microphone if you prefer. So we'll pause here for just a few minutes. Several people are typing in the chat window, so those questions or comments should be appearing momentarily.
Okay. So in answer to Elaine's question about if the data set catalog would be available to the public, yeah, we actually kind of went back and forth on that, and eventually kind of came down to that it makes sense for this data catalog to be public. Because it's, you know, out of an institution and it's not, you know, related to a field. It's not more broad than that. I don't know that we're going to kind of how much outreach we'll do in terms of pushing it publicly, but we felt that the catalog would be there when a researcher was ready for their data to be publicly known. I mean, it's again, it's a catalog. It's not a repository, so it's not that they're putting their data there and somebody can just take it, but that until they're ready for their information about the data to be public, then, you know, the catalog will be there when they're ready. Whether I'll make the slides available, I'm happy to make the slides available. I think, are they going to be available through the presentation, or I could put them up in SlideShare or something. So, but please feel free to reach out to me too, and I can send them to you today. Then the University of Rochester, Kathleen, is anybody using electronic lab notebooks or thinking about it? I'm sure there must be somebody who's using electronic lab notebooks, but on the whole, people are still using paper lab notebooks. And I think that if they're using electronic lab notebooks, my sense is that they're really far ahead of the game as far as this sort of very basic lab organization system that we're proposing. I think that, you know, then they're going to have that metadata and the data all together, and it's going to be much higher degree of organization than what we're offering. This is sort of the baby step in a way. And then in terms of, and I do think that once they have the lab notebook, I think getting their data into the data catalog is going to be much easier. Same thing with the organization system, that hopefully if they're using that, it's going to flow into the data catalog much easier. So that connection I would see, but I think the organization system is sort of for the people who aren't using the electronic lab notebooks. Okay. So I see that Rita's going to share the slides, so that's great. Yeah, so Sarah from Illinois, the question about the data catalog, that they are trying to make data sets available or discoverable through the library catalog. Yes, we did think about that as well, that we already have, you know, our catalog of resources, but it was that discoverability factor that made us want to make it an independent system. That, and also we would see this as, you know, being not the library, you know, we will build it and maintain it, but we don't want to kind of build this as this is the library's data catalog. What we want to do is build this as this is the Med Center's data catalog so that it would live, it would live independently and be sort of powered by the library. It would be more of the marketing around that. Have you shared the code for the data catalog, or is it shareable? It is a work in progress. It's being built right now. So I imagine that's not even something we've discussed. I don't know. I'm sure that we would be willing to share anything any part of it that is shareable. We would be happy to share. And other question? And I will say, while Elaine is typing, that in terms of that original one that we sort of did the same thing that UCSF had done, that was done in Drupal, and it's I'm actually not exactly sure what system the new one is being built in, so I don't know how that'll impact the sharing. Any efforts to create data catalogs and link them. NIH is, they just put out 6 months ago, maybe, plus or minus, they put out an RFA for I think a coordinating center to begin to explore how to build a national data catalog. And Kevin Reed had worked on that project as part of his NLM fellowship, so he came to us with that connection to that data catalog, and that is, they're still very much exploring what that's going to look like, which data sets are going to be there, and so forth. But that's sort of the big one, the big project that I know about that's being worked on in that area. So any other questions, or any questions that I've not answered as completely as what you were looking for?
Thank you, Lisa. And if anybody has questions for Elaine and Donna as well, we'll use our remaining couple of minutes to allow you to do those, and then we'll conclude. Looks like there's a comment here from Vesela.
Yeah, I'll echo what Vessel is saying with that REDCap is worth knowing about. It can do a lot, and it's very easy to use. It's, you can get up to speed in it very, very quickly. And while it is, it's built for clinical research, I think people in general, it has been used. I saw a talk by Paul Harris, who built it, describing what a range of projects people have in the end used it for. And there's Lane, yes.
Thank you, Elisa, and thank you so much to both Elaine and Donna as well. If there are any questions or ideas or comments that come up in the next few minutes, again, continue to use the chat window. I'm going to just take a few minutes to talk to the group about a few housekeeping items. Our next webinar is scheduled for the 17th of September and will focus on data collection, discovery, and analysis. If you haven't submitted your ideas or topics for consultations, please do so. You will be hearing from our postdoctoral fellows and faculty on getting those scheduled and working with you on the topics you've submitted. And just a reminder of our in-person event on Sunday, October the 26th. That's the day before the DLF Forum begins. A call for registration did go out from Louisa, so if you plan on attending and you have not RSVP'd, please do so. And again, just a reminder to keep the conversation going using our Clear Connect space and our hashtag. And we also have set up a LinkedIn community for you all to join. I did send out invitations, so if you'd like to be a part of that, feel free. Idea Scale is still up and running. It's not getting a lot of activity. I don't know that we'll continue to use it, but if you have ideas that you want to post there for upcoming webinars or for the in-person event, feel free to use that. Once again, our recording from today's webinar will be posted in Clear Connect, and guest speakers, I will be sending you the link as well so that you will have that as a reference. So again, thank you everybody for coming today and for participating, and a special thank you to all of our guest speakers. So this will conclude just a few minutes early. This will conclude today's webinar, and on behalf of Clear and DLF, thank you all for joining us, and enjoy the rest of your day. I will leave the chat window open for another 5 minutes or so if the conversation wants to continue there.